What if two strangers showed up at your door, and within hours, fire rained from the sky? This isn't fiction. This is the true story of the angels that rescued Lot from Sodom, a divine intervention that saved a man just seconds before the fire of judgment consumed an entire city. Welcome to Divine War Stories, where we uncover the hidden battles of heaven and the unseen forces that shape our world. If you love stories of angelic power, divine justice, and spiritual warfare, subscribe and journey with us into the supernatural realm. Sodom, a city known for its wealth, indulgence, and darkness. Beneath its beautiful walls and glittering towers, corruption reigned. No law, no restraint, just desire unleashed. But while the people danced and feasted, a storm was brewing in heaven. The cries of the innocent had reached the ears of God, and judgment was now on its way. But before the fire would fall, God dispatched two heavenly warriors. Not with swords, but with a mission. A rescue mission. Their target. A man named Lot. A righteous soul, trapped in a city drenched in sin. And time was running out. Lot wasn't a prophet. He wasn't a king or a warrior. He was just a man trying to live right in a place gone terribly wrong. He had settled in Sodom because it looked good on the outside. Fertile lands, strong economy, beautiful homes. But over time, he saw what hid beneath the surface. Violence. Depravity. A culture that mocked holiness and embraced rebellion. And yet, he stayed, maybe for comfort, maybe for hope. But when two strangers entered the city gate one evening, everything changed. Lot saw them. And something in his spirit stirred. These weren't ordinary men. Something divine walked with them. As night began to fall, Lot insisted the strangers stay at his home. At first, they resisted, saying they'd sleep in the city square. But Lot pressed hard, sensing danger. He knew what the streets of Sodom became after sunset. Evil prowled at night. And so they agreed. He made a meal for them, unleavened bread, and they settled in. But just as peace seemed possible, a pounding came at the door. A mob. All the men of Sodom, young and old, surrounded the house. Demanding. Screaming. They had seen the strangers and wanted them for themselves. Not for hospitality, but for perversion. Lot stepped outside and shut the door behind him. He begged them to leave the guests alone. "Don't do this wicked thing," he pleaded. But the crowd grew more aggressive, more violent. They mocked Lot for trying to act like a judge. They threatened to break down the door. At that moment, the two angels inside moved. They pulled Lot back in and struck the men outside with blindness. Chaos erupted. The mob stumbled in confusion, unable to find the door. It was no longer a question. These weren't just guests. They were messengers of heaven. And their mission was just beginning. With the door barred and the crowd scattered, the angels turned to Lot with urgency. "Do you have anyone else here?" they asked. "Sons-in-law? Daughters? Anyone?" Because this city, this entire place, was about to be destroyed. The judgment was already sealed. God had seen enough. The outcry against Sodom had reached the heavens, and now destruction was coming like fire on dry wood. But God had remembered Lot. Not because he was perfect, but because he was chosen. Because he still believed. Because someone was praying for him. And now, the window to escape was only hours wide. Lot ran to his sons-in-law. He tried to warn them. "Get out of this place. The Lord is about to destroy the city." But they laughed in his face. They thought he was joking. It was too unbelievable. Too extreme. And so they stayed. But the angels didn't wait. As dawn broke, they pressed Lot harder. "Hurry," they said. "Take your wife and your two daughters who are here, or you'll be swept away." But Lot hesitated. Maybe fear gripped him. Maybe he didn't want to leave it all behind. His home. His life. His memories. But the angels didn't argue. They grabbed his hand. They grabbed Lot's wife. They grabbed the daughters. And they physically pulled them out of the city. That's how serious it was. That's how urgent it had become. God wasn't just giving suggestions. This was mercy on a timer. Divine patience had run out, but divine love was still reaching. Once outside the city, the angels gave one final instruction: "Flee for your lives." Don't look back. Don't stop anywhere in the plane. But the pull of the past is strong. The comfort of old sins, the weight of what we leave behind, it can drag us even when angels pull us forward. Lot begged to go to a small town nearby, Zor. And God allowed it. The family ran. The sun rose. And then, from heaven, it came. Fire. Sulfur. Brimstone. Not from earthly weapons, but directly from the hand of God. It rained down like judgment with no delay. The lush valleys turned to smoke. The buildings, the streets, the laughter, all gone in minutes. Sodom and Gomorrah became a wasteland. A monument of what happens when a society mocks heaven and embraces hell. But Lot and his daughters were safe. The angels had completed their mission. Almost. Because as they fled, Lot's wife did something simple. She looked back. That's it. Just a glance. A moment of hesitation. A heart still tied to the place God had condemned. And instantly, she became a pillar of salt. Not because she was curious, but because her heart never left. Her body left the city, but her soul stayed behind. It's a warning echoing through generations. When God pulls you out of something, don't look back. The rescue isn't just physical, it's spiritual. And Lot saw it all. The mercy. The fire. The loss. The rescue. And the price of hesitation. The angels disappeared. Their mission finished. But the mark they left on history remains. Two heavenly beings, stepping into human chaos. Walking through a wicked city with authority from the throne of God. Protecting one man, not because he was the strongest or the loudest, but because heaven still fights for the faithful. This wasn't just about Lot. It was about showing that God never forgets his own. That even in the darkest cities, the angels are still moving. Still guarding. Still rescuing. And when judgment comes, the protectors of heaven will make sure not a single righteous soul is lost. If this story moved you, there's more to discover. Subscribe to Divine War Stories and join us as we unveil the unseen battles and heavenly heroes that shape eternity. After the destruction, Lot and his daughters fled Zor and settled in the mountains, away from the ashes of judgment and the remnants of their past. But what happened in Sodom didn't just scar the land, it scarred their hearts. Lot had lost his wife, his home, his community. He had seen the wrath of God up close and personal. And yet, he had also witnessed something few ever would, divine intervention. Angels sent not to destroy, but to rescue. This wasn't just about fire and brimstone. This was about the fierce love of a God who sends warriors to protect even one soul. The story of Lot isn't comfortable. It's messy. It forces us to look at choices, at comfort, at compromise. Lot chose to live near sin, then inside it. He raised his family there. Watched as the darkness grew. And when the time for rescue came, even he hesitated. But God didn't abandon him. The angels didn't give up. They pulled him out, even when he froze. This is the heart of divine guardianship. Not just protection from outside threats, but deliverance from our own paralysis. The angels didn't wait for Lot to be perfect, they acted because he still belonged to the covenant. Throughout Scripture, angels are often seen as warriors with swords, or messengers with visions. But here, they're protectors. Not flashy. Not violent. Just fiercely intentional. They didn't come with thunder, they came with urgency. With clarity. With hands strong enough to drag Lot out of judgment's path. It's a side of heavenly warfare we don't talk about enough, the gentle violence of rescue. The aggressive love that grabs us before we fall. Sometimes, the most powerful warfare isn't against demons, it's against delay. Against hesitation. Against the subtle pull of staying where we no longer belong. Imagine what would have happened if Lot had ignored the angels. If he'd tried to negotiate with God. If he had delayed just a little longer. Fire was already loaded in heaven's arsenal. Judgment was coming whether people believed it or not. But God, in his mercy, still sent a warning. Still opened a window. Still moved through the unseen realm to save one man and his family. This is what it means to be under divine protection. It's not always comfortable. It's not always logical. But when heaven moves to guard you, nothing, no city, no crowd, no sin, can hold you back. And what about the angels themselves? These weren't cherubs or shining winged beings floating on clouds. They looked like men. They ate bread. They sat in Lot's house. But their authority was unmistakable. With a word, they struck the mob blind. With a hand, they dragged a family out of hell. This is the paradox of angelic presence, ordinary and terrifying, human in form but divine in assignment. These weren't just guests. They were sentinels. Agents of a kingdom far greater than Sodom. And when their mission was done, they didn't stay to be thanked, they vanished into the smoke. Lot's daughters would carry forward his bloodline, but even that came with complications. Trauma often does. But the legacy of this moment, the moment angels pulled their father from fire, was bigger than any generational wound. It showed that God doesn't abandon his own, even in compromised places. Even when we stay too long in places we should have left. The story of Lot is proof that you can be surrounded by wickedness, yet still be seen by heaven. Still be reached. Still be pulled out. Divine protection isn't about your environment. It's about God's hand choosing to cover you. And what does that mean for us today? That angelic protection is not just an ancient story, it's a present reality. The Bible says angels are ministering spirits sent to serve those who will inherit salvation. That includes you. If you've ever felt a near miss, a moment you were pulled back from danger, a sudden change that didn't make sense, it might not have been luck. It might have been a rescue mission. Quiet. Invisible. But no less real. Lot didn't know who was at his door that night. But when the fire fell, he knew exactly who had saved him. The fall of Sodom wasn't just a judgment story, it was a rescue story. A foreshadowing of how God would one day send another to walk into darkness, not just to warn, but to save. Lot was pulled from fire. But generations later, Jesus would walk into the fire for us. Into sin. Into destruction. To carry us out not just of cities, but out of eternal separation. The angels of Sodom showed what divine protection looks like in a moment. But Christ showed what it looks like forever. And the same God who sent angels then is still sending them today. As you think about this story, ask yourself, what am I still clinging to in Sodom? What has God warned me about but I'm still entertaining? Lot's wife teaches us that not everyone who leaves is truly free. Sometimes, rescue requires letting go completely. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. To not look back. To trust that if God is pulling you out, he has something better ahead. Protection is only powerful if we submit to it. The angels can lead, but we must follow. Judgment may be sure, but so is mercy. And sometimes, mercy comes with fire behind it. So when heaven sends its guardians, don't hesitate. Don't delay. Don't argue. Move. Obey. Trust. Because the angels that rescued Lot are part of a much greater host. One that is still on assignment. Still watching. Still waiting for the call to step in. You are not alone in your battles. Not unseen in your struggles. The same God who sent warriors into Sodom watches over your story. And when the time is right, he will send help. Angels don't always come with wings. Sometimes, they come as strangers. Sometimes, they move unseen. But when they come, they rescue. Always. If this episode opened your eyes to the power of angelic guardianship, hit that subscribe button and join us for more. Here at Divine War Stories, the battle between heaven and darkness is always just one story away.